Welcome back, guys, to my countdown of my top 100 movies of the decade. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the films that place between positions 20 and 11. This is where it gets challenging. We're at that point in the countdown now where every film now is what I think to be a masterpiece, a 10 out of 10, a film that you have to see before you die. So I'm essentially ranking masterpieces, which is a lot harder than it sounds. But before we get started, I just want to remind you guys, please do get involved in the comment section down below. I really want to hear from you guys. What were your top 20 favorite movies of the decade? And what do you think of my picks for my top 20? Please do hit that like button. If you haven't done so already, don't forget to click subscribe. And if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, it's on the video description down below. Right, let's get back to it. Okay, so coming in at number 20, we have a genre of film which I normally can't stand. Period drama. But thanks to the wonderfully weird and witty vision of its director Yorgos Lanthimos, this is one hoity-toity tale I absolutely adore. It's the deliciously dark The Favourite. What amazes me about The Favourite is how Lanthimos manages to balance the tone on a knife edge between comedy and drama, which is precisely why this film is so accessible to common peasant folk like yours truly. For every moment of tragic pathos, there's an absurd slice of levity. The Favourite is set in 18th century England in the country estate of Queen Anne, played in this film by Olivia Colman. And we observe how the Queen's two subordinates, Sarah the Duchess of Marlborough, played by Rachel Weisz, and Sarah's cousin, former lady now turned servant Abigail, played by Emma Stone, vie for the position of the Queen's number 2. This might be the most perfectly tuned trifecta of performances in any movie of the past decade. Colman, Weisz, and Stone are each magnificent in their own roles, but together make something that's even more cinematically rich and rewarding. Their performances feed off each other, and they harmonize so perfectly. What makes The Favourite so engaging is that you're never really sure where you stand with these characters. As you learn more about the women's personalities, intentions, and motives, your loyalties and perceptions start to shift. Those that you might have sympathized with at first, you grow to despise, and those that you may have detested to begin with, you begin to see their point of view. It keeps you on your toes, this movie. Quite frankly, we're lucky that The Favourite even exists. I can't think of any other mainstream, female-led, LGBTQ-themed, awards-worthy, period dark comedies to have come out in the last 10 years. Can you? For now, The Favourite really is a one-of-a-kind, an exception to the rule. Let's hope it's not that way forever. Alright, next on the countdown we have a multilingual indie darling which became a surprise international success. It's Lulu Wang's The Farewell. Lulu Wang's deeply personal film, which explores the intersections of Eastern and Western customs, managed to strike a chord with pretty much everybody. Despite the unorthodox premise, Chinese family comes together for dying grandmother Nai Nai, played in this film by Zhao Zhuzhen, only grandmother doesn't know that she's dying. At the core, there is a universal fundamental of life. Family. Coming to terms with loss is an eventuality that we all have to face, and in The Farewell, we see how grief is something that is collectively shared with our families, no matter what our background or ethnicity is. Awkwafina plays granddaughter Billy, a Chinese-American millennial who has grown up in a Western environment. Billy is essentially a stand-in for all the Western viewers that are watching. When she travels all the way to China to be with her family, we empathize with Billy's struggle to not understand this Eastern practice of lying to terminally ill grandparents, which she and the audience aren't accustomed to. But slowly and surely, as we get to know this ensemble of a family, as well as immerse ourselves in the Eastern culture, we understand this family's decision to lie. It's both a happy and sad film. Even though it's about saying goodbye to a loved one, Lulu Wang peppers the film with some comedy about family dynamics as well as culture clash. The Farewell will tickle your funny bones, pull at your heartstrings, and open your eyes to a different cultural vantage point. Okay, so coming in at number 18, we have the solo directorial debut of writer-director Greta Gerwig. It's the uplifting Lady Bird. This film is a tonic. If you're having a rough patch, this film is a perfect remedy to boost your spirits. Lady Bird is Greta Gerwig's love letter to her hometown of Sacramento, as well as a refreshing take on the coming-of-age story. I mean, on the surface, it looks like a pretty conventional teenage movie. Our protagonist worries about getting into college, has fallouts with her friends, experiences the disappointments of first sexual encounters, and she goes to prom. But what separates Lady Bird from the many teenage movies that came before it is that Lady Bird isn't a story about a teenage girl pining after a boy. No, this is a love story between mother and daughter. With Saoirse Ronan as the dogmatic and fiercely independent 17-year-old Christine, who goes by her chosen name of Lady Bird to express her individuality, and Laurie Metcalf as the bordering on overbearing mother Marion, Lady Bird explores the beautiful messiness of mother-daughter relationships with humor, earnestness, and poignancy, as well as the importance of loving where you came from, both in geographical and familial terms. Moving on, next we have my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie of the past decade. It's the revisionist western Django Unchained. Django Unchained, for me, is Tarantino at his most confident since Pulp Fiction. Much like Django himself, this movie is off the chain. It's such a bloody fun ride. Emphasis on the word bloody. Django Unchained pays homage to the spaghetti western genre, but Tarantino mixes in elements of the blaxploitation movies of the 70s, contemporary rap music, as well as modern racial politics. Freed slave Django, played by Jamie Foxx, teams up with dentist/bounty hunter Dr. King Schultz, played by Christoph Waltz, to free Django's enslaved wife Brunhilde, played by Kerry Washington, from the despicable plantation owner Calvin Candy, played by Leonardo DiCaprio. Django Unchained is a stylish, self-aware, over-the-top revenge western which shocks and delights in equal measure. It doesn't shy away from the brutality of slavery, and Tarantino has no qualms about using the N-word, but everything that we love about Tarantino movies is present here. Brilliant characters, violent action, and sharp, punchy dialogue.
I like the way you die, boy.
Poor Will Smith, he must be kicking himself for turning down such an iconic role in such an iconic movie. Okay, so coming in at number 16, we have an entry from director wunderkind Damien Chazelle, who managed to make musicals fashionable again. It's the sun-drenched love letter to old Hollywood, La La Land. The film follows two gorgeous aspiring artists, a wannabe actress called Mia, played by Emma Stone, and a jazz pianist called Sebastian, played by Ryan Gosling. They find each other, get together, and we observe the trials and tribulations of their relationship as well as their careers. Set to the backdrop of a stunning modern-day Los Angeles, La La Land is a wistful romantic musical about young love, ambition, dreams, and the price of success. From its dazzling opening number, Another Day of Sun, set on a congested LA highway, to its closing bittersweet fantasy sequence, La La Land is a movie which sweeps you up and you fall in love with. Chazelle makes La La Land so inviting. He blends retro with modern together to create something that's classic but fresh. He pays homage to the magical musicals of the 1950s like The Umbrellas of Cherbourg, as well as Singing in the Rain. It's also visually vibrant. There's an explosion of technical in every musical set piece, costume, and set. Chazelle gives the viewer a dreamlike experience with his use of long takes, swooning camera work, and idyllic composition. La La Land is an intoxicating experience which makes me so happy. It's a completely original and gorgeous film, and in my opinion, it is the best movie musical that we got last decade. Alright, coming in at number 15, we have the directorial debut of writer-director Dan Gilroy, which was a total sleeper hit. It's the neo-noir thriller Nightcrawler. Jake Gyllenhaal stars as Lou Bloom, a thief turned cameraman who spends his nights filming grisly footage of crime scenes, disasters, and accidents, and then sells that footage on to local news station manager Nina, who's played by Rene Russo. Lou learns that the more distressing and the fresher the footage, the more lucrative the occupation can be, so he starts taking matters into his own hands to get the perfect money shot. Nightcrawler shines a light on the seedier side of the American dream, more specifically, capitalism, and what people will do to get ahead. Jake Gyllenhaal as Lou is hands down the best performance of the decade not to receive an Oscar nomination. He disappears into the role of the slimy, opportunistic Lou. He's the type of character that feels like he's read one too many self-help books, constantly spouting pseudo-inspirational jargon. Gyllenhaal's performance got under my skin. He's just so creepy as this ambitious, super polite, almost sociopathic vulture who picks off the carcasses of dead creatures in order to nourish himself. Honestly, I'm still a little mad that he didn't get a nomination. He was robbed. Nightcrawler also serves as a commentary on the rise of infotainment and news networks having to resort to sensationalized footage and shock value just to boost their ratings in a time where everything is online now. Nightcrawler is an underappreciated modern noir. It's stylish, it's grimy, it's got a transformative performance from Jake Gyllenhaal as a texturized anti-hero who's disgustingly magnetic. Nightcrawler is a film which asks the viewer to look inward because you might find yourself agreeing with this detestable parasitic scumbag Lou more than you'd like. Okay, so coming in at number 14, we have the final and my favorite Marvel movie of the past 10 years. Everyone has a different opinion on which is the best, but for me, and for now, you can't get any better than the Russo brothers' Avengers Infinity War. I know a lot of people prefer its companion piece, Endgame, which is fine. I adore that film as well. It came in at number 63 on this countdown. But for me, no other film has come close to the levels of awe that Infinity War has. The impact that this film had on me was of complete devastation and satisfaction. Martin Scorsese controversially compared Marvel movies to theme park rides. And you know what? He's right. They are thrill rides, but that doesn't diminish their value. Infinity War is the one ride at the theme park that I want to go on over and over and over again. Given the gargantuan scope of this film, there are about 14,506 ways this could have gone wrong, but remarkably, Avengers Infinity War is a cohesive, well-paced, and finely balanced blockbuster. It's got a very straightforward plot. Tyrant Thanos, played by Josh Brolin, is looking for the 6 Infinity Stones, which will grant him the power to wipe out half the universe with a snap of his fingers, so it's up to Earth's mightiest heroes to find them before he does. The film may be overflowing with 30 plus characters, but the Russos did a really good job of dividing the characters into 3 delicious groups. Everybody has something to do, but the Russos pay particular attention to only a handful of characters, the main one being Thanos. The title of the movie might say Avengers Infinity War, but really, this is Thanos' film, which is why it works so well. He gets the most screen time and therefore the most development, so you really come to know him. He might be the villain, but his motives make sense. He's just trying to balance the cosmic scales of an overpopulated, under-resourced universe. To him, he is the hero of his own story. When you find yourself empathizing and understanding a genocidal tyrant, then you know this is a villain for the ages. It's the only MCU movie to date which I honestly couldn't predict where it was going to end up, and where it did end was soul-crushing. I felt the fallout of this film weeks after seeing it. It's one of the most effective finales of all time. Infinity War was such an ambitious film, but thanks to a tight script, great pacing, delightful new character dynamics, epic action, and lots of emotional and rewarding character moments, it ended up being my favorite film in the entire MCU. Right, next up we have a Pixar film, which I genuinely think should be made mandatory viewing in primary schools so that children can learn some valuable and healthy lessons about their emotions. It's the profoundly clever Inside Out. Directed by Pete Docter, Inside Out is set inside the mind of an 11-year-old girl called Riley, where a bunch of anthropomorphized emotions live. There's joy, sadness, fear, anger, and disgust, and they're all tasked with the responsibility of controlling Riley's emotions in what's called headquarters. However, when Riley's dad gets a new job, the family have to relocate from Minnesota to San Francisco, and this uprooting of everything that Riley knows causes joy and sadness to be ejected from headquarters, leaving anger, disgust, and fear to run the show. Essentially, the film is one giant cinematic metaphor for adolescence. Inside Out is a perfect family film because it's got lovable, colourful characters and fantastical, imaginative set pieces for the kids to enjoy, but it's also got some genuinely nuanced ideas about emotions that adults can appreciate too. As kids, we're expected to be happy all the time, but by the end of this film, both Joy and the viewer learn some enlightening lessons, like how it's okay to be sad. And sometimes sadness is in fact what we need. You also can't force happiness, and without sadness, we can't appreciate joy, and vice versa. So Inside Out is a film which moves as well as entertains. It was an ambitious project, but handles its cerebral content with sensitivity, intelligence, and whimsy. This film is the definition of a good cry. You know what I mean? We have a really good weepy session and you feel so much better for it. That's what Inside Out is, a good old life-affirming, cathartic cry. Anyway, moving on, and you thought we were done talking about Pixar movies? Well, think again, my friends. Coming in at number 12 is a film that, believe it or not, makes me cry even harder than Inside Out. It's my favorite Pixar film of the past 10 years. It's Leon Critch's Toy Story 3. As much as I adore Toy Story 4, which also makes an appearance on this countdown at number 32, Toy Story 3 occupies such a special place in my heart. Why? It's simple, really. I grew up with the Toy Story franchise, and as a kid, I identified with the character of Andy because we were roughly the same age in every film. And in 2010, when Toy Story 3 came out, both Andy and myself were going off to university. And when he said goodbye to his childhood pals and drove off into the cloudy horizon, it's like in that exact moment, I was saying goodbye to my own childhood. That's how meaningful this movie is to me. Some movies are so intrinsically linked to your own development that they become a part of you. And that's what Toy Story 3 is to me. I would go into more detail about the plot and what makes this movie so magnificent, but I honestly don't think I'm going to be able to top the sentiment of what I just said previously. It's just so dear, personal, and special to me, Toy Story 3. It is perfection in my eyes, and I don't think it requires any more explanation than that. And coming in at number 11, we have another divisive film, but a film that I personally regard as a work of art. which is something I never thought I would say about the guy that directed the Hangover trilogy. It's Todd Phillips' masterful Joker. It's unfair to label Joker as a comic book movie because it's so much more than that. It actually lacks the typical ingredients you'd expect in a comic book movie. Big action-packed set pieces, excessive CGI, quippy dialogue, and lots of spectacle. Instead, what Todd Phillips provides us with is a gritty character study which is closer to the likes of Taxi Driver or The King of Comedy than it is any Batman movie or Marvel movie for that matter. Joaquin Phoenix gives a tour de force performance as Arthur Fleck, a tortured street performer slash wannabe comedian who goes on to become the Clown Prince of Crime. The brilliance of Joker is that it can be read and interpreted in many different ways. It addresses many issues pertaining to real-life social, economic, and political discourse. What you take away from Joker comes down to you as an individual and your own ideology. It's about the haves and have-nots. It's about those in power looking after the 1% and neglecting the other 99%. It's about how the abandonment of the disadvantaged can lead to radical uprising. It's about mental illness. It's about gun control. It's about the collapse of social and healthcare. It's about the disenfranchised trying to be seen and heard. It's a commentary on superhero culture itself. And it's about the decay of society. It's all of these things and more. What you take away from it is down to you. How many films, let alone superhero films, leave you with as many ideas to ponder and digest? Like how Heath Ledger's Joker in The Dark Knight reflected a post 9/11 world of terrorism and chaos, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker is very much a reflection of today's world. So it's no wonder this film is divisive, because that's exactly what the world is right now. Divided.
Everybody is awful these days. It's enough to make anyone crazy.
It sure is, Arthur. There we go, guys. Those were my picks from number 20 to 11. What did you guys think of these movies? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree? Oh my god, we've got one more video to go, the top 10. Oh, what movies do you think will be in there? What movies do you hope will be in there? Whatever you guys think, be sure to let your voices be heard in that comment section down below. Please do hit that thumbs up button, and if you want to help me out even more, you can share this video with your friends. And if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you can find all those links in the video description down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. I shall see you guys in the next one.